In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to use R Markdown. And R Markdown can be used to create documents, presentations, dashboards, and a couple of other things. And so R Markdown is just a type of Markdown language that's related to how, for example, Word documents are created, or there are LaTeX documents. There are other things that other languages that are used to format and create document outputs. So we don't necessarily need to use R Markdown, but the benefit, when we start to have things that need to be in the same format, or we need things that is a document that we're going to repeat over and over, or if the technical outputs like tables and graphs need updated and we don't want to have to copy and paste every time we do this, we just want to create the document. This is where these sorts of approaches to creating documents are really useful. Okay, so what you see here is a PDF document, and this is just the template. And so you look here and you see it creates text, it creates a table, there are plots that can automatically be output from here, and we're going to walk through sort of how to do this, but there is help in RStudio that will sort of get you started, and so you don't have to remember all of the pieces of this every time you do it. How I do this is I have created some setups that I'm most comfortable with, that I like the most, and then I repeat that over and over. So let's walk through how to get started here. So the first thing you can do is use this help and cheat sheets. Of course, you can find these online, but RStudio is providing some of these links for us. So dplyr we've already used, ggplot2 we've already used. We'll get into Shiny later. There are multiple things here we can use. The one that we're going to be most interested in is this R Markdown cheat sheet right now. And it'll take you to a link, yeah, if I can do it correctly. It'll take you to a link to download the PDF, and you can open the PDF. And once you learn this material, then going back to the cheat sheet can help you remember the syntax or the pieces that you need to know. So we will start with this write with R Markdown, because that's easiest to get started, and then we'll go over to this embed code with knitr. And let's talk through some of this. So let me walk through the format of an R Markdown document, and then we can start to look at the details. So notice here we have, this is called the YAML. This is the introduction that tells R Markdown what the document is going to look like. So if we have a presentation, PowerPoint slide or something, this is going to be different here. And the stuff that goes into the YAML has some necessary syntax. So if we're going to make adjustments here that we'll see later, then it has to look a specific way. Okay, so this is introduction, the header to the document. This is what the title came from. Then we have some R code, so you see some here, some here, some here, and then we have text and some other special text here. So let's walk through a couple of pieces here. So the first part here in code, we're going to mostly spend our time on text for a little bit, but I just want you to see how the code works. The basics for the code are, or the minimum requirements for having some R code in the document are these. So anything you're going to do that is typical R code that we've been working with will go within these chunks here. So somewhere in here you could put something like things that we would have seen before, you can put it all in here. And if you want to do some sort of output, then the same thing can happen here, right? Sort of things we've seen before. So all of that goes within an R code chunk. The same thing if we're going to read in a file. So that would go in here as well. So we'd read in the data set, do all the stuff to it, and output something from it. all of that would go within an R code chunk. Okay, so we'll come back to that and how these R code chunks work in just a little bit. So we'll learn more about this in just a minute. So the basis of the R Markdown is starting with text, and so let's work through a few things about the text. So if we want to put some text in the document, we can just start typing, right? This is me. So if I knit this again, it's going to change the document, and the only thing it's going to change right now is this, and you'll see it says this is me typing in R Markdown. So the text will go directly into the document. Well, what do we do? What are the other special things? Well, there are headers. So each header, so in each of the different types of documents, so in the presentations, in the dashboards, and here sections are separated by these headers. So we can create different headers here, so header 1, and then to go, so this is like 1.0, to then go to a subheader, then we could do 2 of these. So then the more of these hashtags or pound signs we put in, the more the header goes to a lower level. Well, we can do this to see now. And then we start a new one. Let's just see what this looks like so you can understand what these do. So notice it just gives these different sizes, and we can do different types of formats to these headers. We can make them have 1.0, 1.1, or different things like that. In here, it's not so dramatic, but in the PowerPoint presentations and in the dashboards, this becomes really important. So, okay, so we create these headers. We can put text in here. So that's what this is doing, right? We're just putting text after a header. And there are other minor things you can do within the text, and we can go back to the cheat sheet to look at this. If we want to do a list, we can do a single dash. If we want to number the list, we can just put 1.0, 2.0, just like that. There are ways to do links, so if you want to do a hyperlink, it would look like this, right in square brackets, followed by the parentheses, and to put in an image where you are not taking it in an R code chunk would be this. So there are things here you can kind of learn about. You can also do italics and bold. It'll work if you just do Control I or Control B, but you can also do those with, over here, italics is surrounded by 1 asterisk, bold by 2 asterisks. So we've got all these things we can try to mess around with it. They're not, you can just try them. They're not really that important. Then when we move to the R code, there are more options. So notice what has happened here is this is a table, and cars is a data set that comes with R, and so it already knows that this data is in there. That's why it does this summary. So we've got a table here and a plot here. Again, this comes with the with R. So we would have to read this in if we're going to use our own data. And let's go through a couple of why these are different here. So this first one, R setup, this is to say these are the things you're going to do each time you run the code. And include equals false means we're not going to include what happens within this R code chunk in the document. It's just there so that when we run the R code chunks later, it has that available. So for example, this is where we would put our library functions. Anything we're going to use within the document, then we would put this here. We have other options too, so we can do this echo equals false. Let's see what happens if we do echo equals true. And there is something about saving that as well. So notice this R code command came out in the document and had this plot. Oh yeah, so it came out here and came out here. Now, I should have shown that before. So now if we go back to the other way it was, we run it again. And notice what happened, that the R code commands are not here. Up here the summary cars is, that's because we didn't turn off the echo command, so it'll output the R code here. So if you wanted to share what your R code was, this would be a way to do it. But for the plot, it's no longer there. It just shows the plot. That is the echo equals false. There are a few other things. So the include equals false, that's similar to the echo equals false, but include would mean it doesn't output anything here. Echo equals false, don't output the code. There are a couple of other things. If you're running something in an R code that takes a long time and you don't want to run it through every time you create the document, you can do cache equals true, so then it will save what came out of this R code chunk, and the next time it won't have to run through it. All right, so those are the basics for creating a PDF document. Let's go and see how it's a little bit different using other types of documents. So file, new file, R Markdown. Let's do a presentation now. So we can do different HTML versions. We can do a Beamer PDF, or we can do a PowerPoint. Notice the Beamer says you have to have text on there, so that's the latex or MikTeX or other versions of that. PowerPoint, you have to have PowerPoint on your computer. The nice part, I guess, if you don't have any of those, you could do one of the HTML versions. We'll start with PowerPoint here. My preferred is usually Beamer, but PowerPoint you could then make adjustments to afterwards if you want. So then notice what happened here, the output. The only thing that really changes is that the output changes here. So it went from PDF document over here to PowerPoint presentation here. So if you had a PDF document where you have a bunch of material, you've written the whole thing, and now you want it to be a presentation, you could just switch it over to PowerPoint presentation. Of course, you'll have to do some formatting, and because in an individual slide you can't include quite as much as you could in a PDF, like a full document, but the setup would be very similar. Okay, so then let's look here and see what's different. Notice we have two hashtags for this header. The double hashtags is to create a new slide. So this will create a new slide, new slide. So each of those is a new slide. We can look and see sort of what happens with each level here. Again, so we're going to have to save it. And it'll run this and it'll open it. And notice it created the presentation. Notice on these, level 1 doesn't really do anything, level 3 doesn't do anything, so any header is going to create a new slide. Again, it has different functions when we get to the dashboards, but I just wanted you to see sort of how these work. So in terms of creating these levels, we just need a header here to create the header for that piece of the document, okay? And here the standard is this too. Okay, so then the same thing, we can put all this text in there, we can create lists, and the same sort of output we had before here, we can have again. So let's try, just for fun, we can see sort of what these options do. So notice in the last one, we said include equals false, so nothing is here. On this one, echo equals true and include equals true, so then we have the output of the command, and we have the output from the R code chunk, and then these bullet points here. Of course, we can do other things to, we may not like the particular format for these presentations. It doesn't look pretty or anything. We can go in and try and change some of the defaults so that when we run this, it has a specific output that we like. And once we have it formatted that way, then that can be the default going on, and we don't, we never have to sort of make those adjustments again. The couple of other things to sort of remind you of. So remember, we have these chunks. And there's a few more details that we need to think about, but if we're going to read in some data, anything we're going to use now, we have to do just like we would do in one of in some of the R code we've done before. So if you want to read in something, you got to do it the same way here. If you want to graph something, you have to do it the same way here. But the same syntax that we would use before then would be used here. And a few things that we have to think about, because it works slightly differently. We have to think about what's available within each chunk, and whether what was available here is available later. A few other small details like that, but in general, this is all you need to know to start working with these presentations and PDF documents. Now it's just a matter of practice. In class, we'll work on making things look nicer, or doing some other things to automate output that will help make these even more functional. All right, start trying, have a little bit of fun.